Hello, people. How you doing? I hope you're having a good day and you're braving lockdown number 2. So I am very excited today because I've got a special guest. I've got the one, the only, Sam Norris. How you doing, Sam?
I'm good. That was I like the theatrics of that that intro. Do you know what? On a really random note, I'm not the one and only Sam Norris, because everyone's played that game, haven't they, where they type their own name into Google. About 5 or 6 years ago, I did it. Turns out Sam Norris is actually also a gay Canadian porn star.
Right.
But I'm the other one. So hopefully you got the one that you wanted.
Wait, you're the other gay Canadian porn star, or you're the other Sam Norris?
Yeah, that's it. Look, I've got many hats.
All things to all men. Excuse the pun. Okay. I thought this was a property show, but yeah.
That took a weird turn early doors, didn't it?
So how are you doing? What have you been up to this week? I mean, how are you handling lockdown too, first of all?
Do you know what? Like, I work from home a lot anyway. My team are in the office in London. I live up in just outside of Birmingham, and so it's I'm used to working from home. I think the tricky part we're having this time is all of us are working from home. This is the first time that all of us have been remote at the same time, and that has represented a few difficulties. I'm big on communication, both with the team and with clients and stuff like that, and that's been a bit of a struggle. Just it's much easier for something to slip through the net, even if it's just right. We said we were going to get back to a client today, and it slipped through till we'll quickly have to send them a quick email this evening. I'm so big on communication, and even my business partner and I have had a couple of steamy conversations, shall we say, where which is like, guy, right, why do you not tell me this? Why is this happen? And it's because we're used to just either him being in the office running everything down there, and me just being on the phone to him 2 or 3 times a day, just catching up with things. It's been difficult. It's been more difficult than I envisaged it would be, and it is what it is. But hopefully we're near the end of it now. But not any less busy. In fact, we're probably more busy. So that's a good thing.
Exactly. I mean, just picking up on what you said, it is what it is. That's been a phrase that has been used so much for me this year, because it's like, at this point, is what it is. Lockdown, that's just the new normal. And I do kind of attest to the same sort of point, in the sense where I thought I would be maybe less busy at the beginning of lockdown 1. And then it just turned out that, I think being at home and having to sort of be fully on, because when you're going to an office, you kind of have that leaving the office moment where, okay, I can leave the work there and then pick up something else when I get home. And you kind of have that kind of context switch where you can shift focus. Whereas working from home, everything's happening. It's work, it's family, it's chores, it's this, it's that. So it's intense. I'll give you that.
Absolutely.
But
I didn't start off lockdown like this, the first lockdown. What I learned from that lockdown, and now I've done in this lockdown, is I have a morning routine, and I act as though this room that I am currently in now, which is, luckily, like I said, I do sort of work from home, so it's a bit less makeshift than other people may have. But I think of it as I'm leaving my bedroom, go and have a shower, brush my teeth, have a cup of coffee, all the normal things I would normally do, get dressed. I know a lot of people struggle with the whole, I'll just go and work in my pajamas. There's that whole sort of joke that went around the first lockdown. Who's actually sitting there in a pair of shorts and flip flops or whatever. No, I get dressed. I'm just wearing a t-shirt today, but I do that. My wife's on furlough, so she's kind of like a bit of the opposite, where she's struggling with that lack of, what's the word? She doesn't have like a something that to drive her. She doesn't have a purpose.
Yeah.
Look, if she wants to have a lie in the morning, she hasn't got anything to get up for. That's absolutely cool. Like I don't mind. As long as I don't wake her up with being too noisy getting ready. I don't think she's too worried. But it's a really weird sort of juxtaposition at the moment between the two of us on opposite ends of the scale, where I'm probably working, as hard as I have in many a year, trying to firstly we're a relatively fledgling company, and she literally is being paid to do nothing at the moment. That's not being horrible to her. That's the genuine truth of it. So we're real opposite ends of the spectrum, which is a bit tough.
I can definitely see your conundrum. But speaking of, so tell me a bit about what it is that you do. So you've mentioned about your company, and you're busy in lockdown, and more busier. I mean, busier than what you used to be. What is it you actually do?
So, so I run Grand Union Finance. We are a specialist mortgage brokerage. When I say specialist mortgage brokerage, that isn't a boast. That's me saying we deal with a particular part of the market, which 90% of our clients are investors and developers, basically. So, although we do a lot of mortgages, they tend to be more on the buy-to-let and specialist side. So, those for HMOs, so service accommodation, commercial, and we also do a lot of bridging finance and development finance. But I suppose our sort of niche, if you like, is working with these investors, and we understand their processes, their systems, their strategies, what they're trying to achieve. When they turn around and say looking for cash flow, we understand what they're talking about. If they turn around and talk to us about growing portfolios, buy, refurbish, refinance, flipping, we understand all the terminology. In fact, a lot of the time, we might even be teaching them a few things, because we've been doing it quite some time. I got my qualification to be a broker 13 years ago, so I've been doing it quite a long time. My business partner's been doing about 10, 11. So we're closing on about 25 years worth of experience between the two of us. And so we actually started Grand Union during lockdown 1. We worked for this. We've known each other for 5 years, but we actually sort of started working at one company together. We went our separate ways, carried on being friends. We would see each other at least once a month for a few years. Then we came back and started working for another company together. And in that company, I was the only salaried broker. And so when lockdown hit, my old boss just called me and said, "Look, Sam, you're the only guy here on a salary. So unfortunately, we're going to have to let you go." Fully understood. New companies, no matter what time you open them up and you start them, always going to encounter issues. But given when we actually started, the market was a bit quiet, and so it did allow us to focus in on building out our systems a little bit more, so that as things did pretty quickly start busy again, we were in a really good position to just sort of hit the ground running and take on as many new clients as we're asking to be taken on effectively. So it's been a really, really interesting year this year. And if I look back to sort of 1st of January 2020, I never would have thought that I'd be sitting here, halfway through November in the situation that we're in. So I tell you what, though, I never realised how much fun being your own boss is. It's genuinely the best thing ever.
Yeah. What I mean, that's so cool. I mean, tell me one fun fact about being your own boss. What have you done?
I've always, although I've been a broker, and a lot of people don't know about mortgage brokers is that we're asked to spin a lot of plates. We are business development managers. We're human calculators. We're lender liaisons. We're salespeople. We're administrators. We're data entry clerks. We're compliance officers. We have to do all of these things. And one thing that I've really loved is having the power to create a process that I genuinely believe. Well, I haven't ever worked well when I was working for other people, because it was quite evident that I think I was just meant to work for me. And so I'm not one of those people that's generally motivated by money. So when I get up in the morning, I get excited to help new clients, speak to new clients, and then build systems to enable us to be able to help them even better and provide a better service. And that kind of stuff. That's the fun. That's the fun of doing this, is just being able to have the power and the agility to be able to go, this ain't working, let's change it. And we've done that so many times, and it's great. I love it.
No, that's so cool. I mean, one of the things that I like about, I mean, there aren't too many things you can say, I like about, COVID and lockdown, but I have observed that it has in some way been a catalyst to the birthing of a number of businesses that may not have started if not for the situation. And I think that's because in a year like this, you've got to try and take some positives, right? And I think that's definitely, I see it as a positive thing. And I wanted to ask you, how have you found the sort of the market during lockdown? Because obviously you're working with, if I get it right, investors or property investors and others who are looking for products based on activity that they're doing in the property industry, so because like, talk to me about your views on, is the industry booming? Is it good time for investors, or like, what's your experience of that?
Do you know what? There's pros and cons for investors at the moment. Obviously, from my side, when I look at the funding options, we've still got so much. And I said this on a video I did recently, where I was talking about, actually, when we take a step back and realize how fortunate we are as investors in the UK, property investors, that I should say, is that we probably, and I use the word probably because I have no data in front of me that says it, we potentially have more institutions from your banks and like NatWests and Santanders or whatever at the top level, down to small family offices, or even private one-man band investors down at the bottom end. We've probably got more people lending money in the UK than the rest of Europe combined. Okay. If you live in Paris and you want a mortgage, you've probably got the choice of 4 or 5 banks.
Yeah.
And they're dreadful. I've done a mortgage for somebody that lives in Paris with a lender called Credit Agricole, CA, and
I know of them.
They literally, I remember I was trying to get through to them. They're like UK liaison person, and like they just said, oh, our office is shut in August. I was like, your office is shut in August? Like, as in
for
the whole of August? And I said, what about your competitors? They're like, yeah, they're just the same. All the Spanish banks finish at 3 PM. The German banks are pretty decent by the sounds of things. Yeah. But yeah, we're so lucky. If you just want a standard buy-to-let mortgage in this country, you've got hundreds of options.
Right.
We are so lucky, and that hasn't necessarily changed during lockdown. Yeah, numbers of products are down on where they were pre-COVID, but that still puts us at the top of the league table when we're looking at the rest of the world. Even America doesn't have as many lenders as we do. We are at the forefront of the lending market, not just in terms of the options, not just in terms of the quality of the products, but in terms of our financial institutions are so mature. If you think that some of our banks have actually been around longer than America has even been around, these are mechanisms that they put in place in systems and processes and knowledge that have been built up over hundreds of years sometimes. We're in an amazing situation. I think people lose sight of that, that how lucky we actually are. People moan about mortgage lenders and just lenders in general all the time.
Yeah.
That they're greedy banks. Well, no, they're businesses. They're making money. Okay, and they're offering you something that actually is probably on par with or better than most any other country can offer you in the entire world. Why do you think London is considered the financial capital of the world? Why do you think that investors from Monaco, from Abu Dhabi, from Dubai, from the Far East, some of the richest countries in the world, why do you think they all come to London and buy property?
Yeah. Makes sense when you put it like that.
The financing is available. The quality of the product is, I think London property is probably one of the most sought after commodities internationally. And, we should consider ourselves incredibly lucky. And there's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, that moan at me. I mean, I had a client today who got annoyed because the best rate that he could get was 3.99%. That was the best rate he could get, and he was absolutely devastated, like to the point of anger. He was actually getting angry with me and my business partner on the phone about that. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, fair enough. Like, there are buy-to-let mortgages for less than 2% at the moment, but you're buying a limited company, you're a high rate taxpayer. You're not buying a limited company, you're a high rate taxpayer. The rental calculators don't work for you. So we found someone that does 3.99. It's not going to kill you. 3.99 is not the worst rate in the world. But unfortunately, he's
can't please everyone, can you? No.
You can't. And that goes for any type of business, to be honest. So it's
busy. That's so interesting.
It's busy. It's good. It's good and it's busy.
Busy is good. And it's interesting to hear your outlook. And it's good to see, a business that's thriving in the lockdown. But something I wanted to pick out. So you mentioned you do different types of products and different type of you support investors that have different types of strategies. One of them that is quite topical for me, because it's something I'm going to look into a bit more in the new year. BRR, right? So, what's your experience of BRR? Have you seen many? I guess that's bridge loans, right?
Yeah. So
what's that market looking like at the moment?
Yeah, great. Bridging is actually really strong at the moment, I think. The pricing wise, we're probably not quite where we were pre-lockdown. But if you ask me, I think that the bridging market was actually over competitive a little bit pre-lockdown. It was giving people false hope of what they can achieve. Traditionally bridging has always been at about 1% per month as an interest rate, and there were lenders out there lending it at less than 0.5%, and these kind of rates were being advertised. And there were some big lenders, big famous lenders potentially that have purple logos, that were sort of chucking out a lot of these rates, but then actually not being able to fulfill on those, and it gave false hope to a lot of people that apparently an interest rate of 0.5% was the norm, and it isn't really, and it wasn't. Something more around the sort of 0.65, 0.75, that's really where the market was at. And to be honest, it's only really gone up a little bit. Probably we say to people, work out your figures between 0.8 and 0.9, because that's roughly where we're going to be hitting. Lenders are shying away from the smaller deals, smaller loans on a bridge, so you're probably going to pay more a little bit for that. But in terms of
what do you class as a small loan? Sorry, what do you class as a small loan?
Less than 50 grand is a definite small loan. Less than 75 is potentially a small loan. Less than 100 grand, there are still lenders out there that are going to have a minimum loan size of 100 grand. But we've seen lenders as well that would have a minimum loan size of 100, but have now pushed it up to 150, or were 150 and now 200. So just pushing them up a little bit. So the options at the lower end aren't as great as we would like, but there's still enough to be getting our teeth into. But with BRR, I think a lot of people get concerned with using bridging at the beginning, but I think it's because they don't necessarily, for me, maybe are a bit naive to the process. Yeah, and for me, we call it BRR, but the way I see it is RRB, because I start at the back end and work backwards. We've never, touch wood, between me and my business partner, in the entire time we've been doing this, we've never got any of our clients into a bridge that they've defaulted on, i.e. we didn't get them out of it. And it's because we make sure of our exit strategy, i.e. how are we going to pay the loan back? That the refinance element of buy, refurbish, refinance is the most important bit. Anyone can go and get a bridge. You can always find somebody that will give you a bridge, but you can't always find somebody that will get you out of that bridge, or at least get you out in a manner that will make the whole deal work. So you've got to look at your end result. How much is your property going to be worth once you've actually done your refurb bit, the bit in the middle to it, and how much is 75% of that? Because that's the mortgage you're going to be aiming for, 75% loan to value. If that 75% loan to value covers your bridge, great. Does it cover your deposit you put down? Yeah, maybe. Awesome. That's good too. Does it cover the cost of the works and the fees? No, it doesn't quite cover that, all of that amount. But that's okay, because then you use whatever's remaining in there and your net cash flow per year on your asset that you've acquired, and you can then work out your return on investment. And realistically, if you're getting between 20 and 30% return on investment, you're doing all right. And there's plenty of those deals around. So for me, that's how you actually work it out. You do it backwards. Look at your mortgage first, work backwards, and then work out what actually works in terms of a bridge at the front end.
No, that's really interesting. And I am so you called it RRB because you kind of you offer like an end-to-end solution in the sense where somebody comes to you, it's not just the bridge loan, you're helping them out with the whole strategy, right? So get the asset, refinance, do the project, refinance it. Okay.
Absolutely. So, our job is to make sure they can repay that bridge loan. That's probably when it comes to BRR, that is our main focus. Can they repay the bridge? Because we can get them a bridge. It doesn't matter how much the bridge costs. And this is another thing actually people get hung up on. If you actually end up with a property on the back end that's worth more than you bought it for, you're able to get most of your money back out. So you've got enough money in your back pocket again at the end to be able to go and repeat the process. and you're cash flowing at £200-300, if you have all of that, then the cost of the funds on the bridge is pretty irrelevant. I mean, we want to try and get it as low as we possibly can, of course, but it is actually irrelevant when you think of it like that. What you end with is more important than what you start with, basically.
Right. Oh, so many questions I have now. So many questions. So if we were to do a bit of a case study,
effect on people.
So many questions. So if we did a case study of, let's say I wanted to do a BRR, and I've got I found, let's say, a property in auction, and I'm going to buy it quick sale, and then want to do it up. Do I need to find the mortgage provider that will do the mortgage at the as in the mortgage provider that will do the remortgage, once it's done up? Do you need to line them up at the beginning of the project? And on what basis would you line them up on?
Yeah, we'll put together a shortlist. We're not going to. Some bridging lenders will like to see that we actually do a decision. So what we'd look at is, we're not necessarily going to apply for the mortgage at the beginning of this process. What we'll do is we'll line up a shortlist of the best lenders at this possible moment. We'll take into account what the situation is now, in terms of what the borrower's situation is, but then we'll look at what the value of the property is likely to be once the work's complete, what rental income you're going to generate, and we'll draw up a list of lenders based on the client's situation and what the property is going to look like. We're not going to apply for anything. Some lenders, some bridging lenders might want to see a decision in principle as proof. Okay. It will depend on the client's circumstance. If the client potentially has got really bad credit, for example, the lender might want to see that there is actually genuinely a lender that would offer a mortgage on the back end. So that in that instance, they might get us to do a decision in principle. But remember, lenders' interest rates will change from month to month. So we can't sort of decide right this very second, this is the product, this is the lender, because that's going to change. So if we've got a shortlist, we just need to be confident that there will be a lender at the back end.
Okay.
And then what we'll do is we'll keep sort of replenishing that. And when we get closer to the time of refinance, probably about a month and a half to, well, probably at the moment 2 months before we want to refinance, we'll do the research again properly. We'll make a formal recommendation of the lender and the product, and then we'll probably get a decision in principle at that point, and then get everything together to submit an application there, and then we can manage that refinance. Basically, what we want to do is we want to get it to the point where we sync together, where the property has completed the work. And we sync that with when the valuation takes place, so that we maximize, the timeline and pay back the bridging loan in the optimal and shortest time frame possible.
Okay, that makes sense. And I guess so. Another question: have you had any BRRs go to complete the end of the life cycle in lockdown? So where you've refinanced and then you've done based on the done up value?
Not quite, but almost. Okay. We have had one that we did I think we completed on the bridge just before lockdown, and we're just about to complete on the refinance of it. But a lot of these, what's happened is, even if we completed the bridge a month or two. In fact, actually, no, we've got two that we're doing that have been that sort of time frame. But remember, for a long period of time this year, clients couldn't get builders in. That was more the delay. It wasn't the lenders really that were delaying things. It was unfortunately the fact that builders just couldn't get into the properties and weren't allowed to. So that added a couple of months onto the time frame for most people. But there's been a couple that we've, considering the situation over the course of this year, we're going to do the whole cycle, which is pretty good, to be honest.
Oh, really cool. And are you finding that? So, what's the gap between what the expected value was based on the when your projections, when you're doing the project at the beginning, versus the actual valuation at the end of it? Like, have you seen any much delta?
Well, one of them actually went up. So they were, I think we got about 10 grand more. Because the thing is that I always say to clients, look, when we're going for a refinance, if your aim is to just borrow as much as you possibly can, because you want to recycle as much as you possibly can, because that money is going to go into your next project, then sod it. Why not apply and add 5-10% onto the value of the property just to test the waters. We know that this works. Okay,
right.
we even know that this works. So let's go for this, and if it hits that, then great. That kind of works anyway. But on the odd occasion, in the 1 in 10 chance that it might actually value up, then you get a bit extra, and you're not losing anything by it down valuing. It's not really a down valuation. It's just they're valuing it at the actual open market value, not the inflated amount that you think it is. But realistically, this is what I say to people as well when it comes to valuations. Surveyors are different to estate agents. You have to think what both of these two people do. This a similar thing. They're there to tell you how much your property is worth, but you've got to think of what the context of it is.
Yeah.
An estate agent is, and this I know this as an insider because my first job was working for Foxtons.
Right.
Was when I was my first ever job was basically booking valuations for people at Foxtons. I was as a proper little junior. I had to make 250 calls a day. Can you imagine doing that?
Jeez.
Yeah. I had some numbers in the back of my book that I knew would instantly go to voicemail, and I just used to ring them about 10 times a day
just to get your call sheet done.
Just to get my call sheet up. Yeah, it's impossible to do 250 actual calls a day, but there we go. But yeah, I would when I spoke to them, would you like be looking to sell your house? Yes, I am. Okay, great. So who have you had in so far? That's what I would always ask them, because we would always try and get the last spot. I've had Stratton Parker in. They've come in last week. Oh, what did they value it at? Oh, they valued it at 450. Okay, cool, interesting. Make a note of that. Got to do it more than 450. And then have you got anyone else coming in? Yeah, we've got so and so coming in on Thursday. We've got so and so coming in on Saturday. Great. Okay, well I'll tell you what. You've already got those booked in, so why don't I book you in for Monday, the following Monday? So we get in last. So that valuer can go and ask, what's the value of what are the others valued at?
But
just chuck on a couple of extra thousand at the end, because no matter what the service quality is, no matter all these other salesy bits, whatever it is, most people, 90% of people are going to go with the agent that gives you the highest valuation. That's what people are going to go for. So that's the sales tactic. So you've got to remember that when an estate agent is giving you a valuation, it's based on trying to sell to you. A surveyor has none of those outside influences. In fact, he's got zero incentive to give anything other than what he believes is a true open market value to that property. Because if he overinflates it, it's his head on the chopping block potentially. If something goes wrong and that lender comes back to the surveyor and says, what happened here, it's his head personally that's on the chopping board. So if he can't find enough data to warrant giving the valuation that you want it to be, he's not going to give it. And I say this to people all the time, you can't expect this of surveyors. They're not going to do it. So you have to provide evidence. You have to show, if you're doing BRI, very much, you need to get used to putting together valuation packs. You need to get used to taking before and after photos and putting those together, collating those together, keeping a schedule of works, doing your research on recent sales comparables in the area, on the road, the 3, 4, 5 roads around, last 3-4 months, what's been selling. You've got to keep a record of all of this kind of stuff. Even check what the ceiling price of the road is. If you're getting a BRR, and you're buying for 200,000, for example, and your figures work if you get a 300,000 end value, but the ceiling price for the road is 290. Chances are you're not going to get more than 290.
Yeah.
So you've got to take all of these things into account. This comes into the due diligence, and unfortunately, I do think that not enough people do enough due diligence. They're so keen, they're very tunnel vision on getting into the deal. And they don't think longer term. They don't think, right, how is this going to actually play out longer term?
Wow. Wealth of knowledge there. Wealth of knowledge. I'm going to have to play some of this back and just take some notes.
Good thing you're recording it then.
Yeah, exactly. What was I going to ask now? So in your experience, obviously, you've seen projects end to end, right? And what would you say are the typical things to do to a property to uplift it? Like, what's the typical, okay, this is the project that we're going to do to uplift it, and we're going to take it from this to that. What's the typical transformation, basically, that gets you the money?
Yeah, there's various amounts. I mean, the first project I ever did with my dad, because my dad's a builder, so we were quite fortunate that I knew how to raise finance. He knew how to, convert properties. All we did was we found a bungalow in North London. First and foremost, it was highly unmodernized. It needed bringing up to the 21st century, and so we renovated throughout. So that's the first one. Just improving the aesthetics. New kitchen, new bathroom, new carpet, flooring, new colors on the walls, whatever it might be. That's the first thing you can do. And actually, sometimes that is enough. I've seen BRRs work where you're just doing that. You're going from this standard to this standard, and you see an uplift in the value. Now you can add extra things onto that. What we did was, we're just very, very fortunate that one of my dad's really close friends is probably one of the best architects in North London. So he popped around to say hi and see how our project was getting on. And he went, I think you can change things around. So what we ended up then doing was actually changing the layout. We knocked down probably all of the walls apart from the supporting walls, of which I think there were 2, and they were probably about a meter in length. This is not in the whole property, and just changed the layout. And we turned a 2-bed into a 3-bed with the master bedroom having an ensuite as well. Right. So we were able to reconfigure. So if the property is not configured particularly well, you can make changes to that to make it configure a hell of a lot better. So that's the other thing that you can do, is to actually, for example, you get like some of the old townhouses that have like a downstairs like bathroom like right at the back of the house.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, I've seen this happen quite a lot. A lot of the time, that'll be in like, it's not an extension, but it looks like an extension. You might be able to get planning to do an upstairs extension above that and actually shift the bathroom upstairs, because no one likes a downstairs like bathroom. No one wants to walk through the kitchen to go and have a shower. So that can really improve the value of a property. So it's things like that. So the configuration, changing the layout is a massive thing. But then obviously the big thing is square footage. You can increase the square footage. You can do an extension. We did this on this bungalow as well. We increased the square footage because we did an extension that was within build regs. So we didn't need to get planning permission. I think it was something like it just went out 2 meters out the back, and wasn't quite the full width of the property. So within building regulations, we were able to increase the square footage. Didn't have to go through planning permission. Could just get that done. We did that. That created a much bigger, cool open plan kitchen diner scenario, big double doors at the back. So we did all 3 of those things. Now, bearing in mind, this particular project was 2010. We bought it for 250 grand. We spent about 90 grand on it. And I think that was helped because obviously my dad, took some of the labor costs out. But we ended up with a property. So that was, if you include fees and all that kind of stuff into that, so 250, 340, let's just say it was maybe 360 all in. We sold that property for 460. 460. 469 months later.
Okay, wow.
So in 9 months we made 100 grand gross profit before tax.
It's not a bad innings. Yeah.
But it's because we hit those 3 key things to add value to the property. The aesthetics was improved, the layout was improved, the square footage was improved.
Aesthetics, layout, square footage. Okay, so those are the things to look out for. All right.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about we're moving. I mean, we're doing rent to rent, at the moment, but looking to progress into basically BRR.
It's a great. Yeah. I think rent to rent's great. If you do it properly, it's like anything. I've got so many clients that started doing rent to rent, and you know what? They are some of the easier clients to work with because they come to you with an experience of working in property. So they understand a lot of the terminology, they understand the ins and outs. All they just need is they need to understand how things like bridges and mortgages works, because they haven't necessarily They just need to know how to fund. But the acquisition of these sorts of things, yeah, okay, they haven't actually gone through the full process of buying a property, which again is a bit of fun. That's fun watching them get sort of a bit scared at certain points on that. But we're there to hold their hands a little bit. So it's just filling in those gaps. But they're great clients because they know what they're talking about. I literally was speaking to a client first thing this morning, and she's got a few rent to SAs, and I said, look, I'm loving this conversation because you know what I'm talking about. You understand a lot of the concepts that we're discussing. You know about cash flow. You know how to run these things. So, okay, mortgage lenders don't take that kind of experience into account, but I do. I think it's really worthwhile. So I'm probably one of the few brokers out there that has a real, I really actually rate rent to rent. I think it's a great thing. As long as everyone wins, you never want to take you never want to take anyone for anything, but yeah, I think all in all, it's a good way of getting into property.
Yeah, well, that turned out to be our, I guess, starting point. So, and we're looking to progress. What's your view on joint ventures with regards to BRRs?
I don't see anything wrong with them. I think with BR, so there's a lot of good things that can come out of a joint venture. And the big negative to kick things off with though is you need to be aware of what I think you need to work out your end goal with that person. Is the end goal that you're going to stay with this person, with this property for the next 25 years? If that is the case, then you need to be very, very, very wary of that person, and you need to, you're going into like a marriage with this person, so you need to be very, very trusting of them, and they you. But taking that out of the equation, there's loads and loads of pluses to it. Number one is probably increased amount of cash to put into a deal. Even though it's my job to raise finance, I'm a great advocate of not over leveraging yourself. I talk to my clients a lot. They come to me, oh yeah, Sam, I need a 75% bridge. Great. But have you got a 40% deposit? Yeah, we could probably put a 40% deposit together. Great, let's do a 60% bridge instead. And they're like, what? You've just lost out on like 15% worth of commissions. I'm like, don't care. It's a better deal for you. Your cost of funds goes down dramatically because you're borrowing less, and the cost per month is going to be less because the interest rate will be less as well. So we'll always look at that. Always be a bit more open-minded to that. So that's one thing. But you can also leverage their experience. If you're a newbie and you're trying to find funding on, I don't know, say for example, you're buying a townhouse, you want to convert it into 3 flats. There's not that many bridging lenders that are going to be ridiculously comfortable giving you a load of cash to do that. Not unless you get a project manager in, maybe, or really, really, good quality contractor, which you should be doing anyway, to be honest. But then bringing somebody else on board that maybe has done 1 or 2 of these things before, that's just going to look great. Because one thing when it comes to bridging development finance and these types of deals where the experience is really key, starting to keep a record of what you've done in property, like a property CV, is so important. Because these are the kinds of things that when you're applying for this kind of finance, this is just standard prerequisites. When I'm arranging a development finance loan for a client, it's all the same stuff. You need to have a development appraisal ready. You need to know what all of the figures, ins and outs are going to be. It needs to be presented well. You need details of the team that you've got around you, both professional and in terms of the build team. You need a schedule of works from that builder so that you can see actually what's going to happen week on week and the cost of it. You need a property schedule, any background properties you've got, any experience, even if it's rent to rent, it's good to keep a record of those. And also the CV, as I said, anything that you've done previously in property, all of those things together, they're the standard things that most development finance lenders are going to ask for before even issuing terms. Add into that probably an assets and liabilities statement, and you've pretty much got yourself covered. If you have all of those things, you have all those documents, then that's the starting point. And you need to be really familiar with all of those documents. Is really important. But going back to the joint venture question, if me as a broker was to send out a previous property schedule to you, and you're like, I've got nothing to put in there, how good is it if you had a business partner that could put 7 or 8 projects in there? That's going to really sweeten that deal for a lender and make them a lot more comfortable.
Okay, that's really interesting. And you're dealing with lenders who are familiar with, property strategies, so they're judging it not with the same lens as like a normal lender. They're judging it based on their understanding of the strategies, and they're asking for they're asking the right questions so that they can determine based on their understanding if they think it's going to work or not.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, I think what people forget that there's all new terminology and for things. An HMO used to be a bed sit. Now it's co-living. BRR's been around for ages. It's just somebody gave it a funky title. People have been buying properties, developing them, and then selling them or renting them out for decades. Right. So it's just and you know what? A lot of the time, there's all these, as I said, these cool phrases. I mean, even now, some mortgage lenders, if you're in serviced accommodation, if you go to a mortgage lender and say, I'm renting this out as serviced accommodation, they won't know what the hell you're talking about, because they just know it as a holiday let or a short let. And that's all it is. So although I wouldn't say these lenders are necessarily au fait with or understand all the terminology and these property strategies, what they do understand is the principle of it. You're buying something, you're renovating it, you're going to sell it, or you're going to keep it and you're going to refinance.
Yeah.
They won't necessarily say, "Oh, it's a buy, refurbish, refinance deal," because that's not in their vocabulary.
That's not their lingo. Yeah.
It's not their lingo. But in a roundabout way, bridging lenders, development finance lenders, they get it. Even to an extent, mortgage lenders are starting to come around to it, particularly the ones that we're going to go to for our refinancing. Typically, a lot of people, I'm not a tax advisor, so I can't give any advice on it, but most of my clients are buying a limited company now for various different reasons. Mortgage lenders are becoming much more understanding of that. They're releasing more products to cover that. And a lot of these lenders that are in the specialist part of the market that do offer these types of mortgages, a lot of them are starting to get an understanding of, actually, do you know what? We can refinance these clients before 6 months. The weird 6-month rule that hovers above us, and so there are more lenders that are starting to do that now as well. So they're getting it. They are getting it, but I think they're reliant on brokers to give them that feedback, and I don't think that many brokers actually do give them genuine, honest feedback and spend the time to do that. So we try and do that as much as we possibly can.
Awesome. Wow. I definitely am going to have to rewind. Pause,
I talk quickly as well, which doesn't help.
No, it's good. Like really a lot, and it's helpful for me because this is definitely something that I've been thinking a lot more of, and something that I'm looking to transition to. That's like, you've got your strategy for 2021, you start planning it now. This is definitely on the cards. It's kind of like ruminating in my head at the moment. But here's something for you. So this is typically a car themed show. I was saying before, it's been less car themed recently, but if we're continuing on with that theme, I've got a question for you, and it is, what is your favorite car and why?
So it kind of changes from now again. I'm so, bearing in mind, my father-in-law used to work for Jaguar Land Rover. He basically used to test engines. This guy is a former RAF engineer. He knows cars. I look like such an idiot next to him, because if you lift up the body of a car, I've got no clue what's going on underneath there. I know where to fill up the windscreen wiper. Yeah. That's pretty much the extent of my car knowledge.
Like round things and tubes that you can open.
And when you turn
makes
it
a
on,
noise.
it goes vroom. But one thing I do is I like the look of cars. Like, so the aesthetic is important to me. So there's kind of in my head, there's four cars. I like sports cars. Okay, so there's like sort of four cars in my head that I really like. Now on the one side, I really like the i8, the BMW.
Okay, BMW. Yeah.
Because I like the fact it's electric, so it's good for the environment. Still looks sexy as hell, but it's good for the environment as well. So that ticks a few boxes. And I've always wanted a Mustang. That's what I like. That's like top of my list. And I've heard apparently an electric version of the Mustang is coming out. Although I feel like with the Mustang, the sound is quite.
The sound is what makes it, really, isn't it? Yeah.
So I don't know how they're gonna do that, but outside
probably put
of
like
that,
a fake sound, like put a speaker in there.
Noise. And then there's me opening up the bonnet. Oh yeah. The sound is coming from the engine. I don't see the big
subwoofer.
speaker there. But I'm also I really like Audi R8s as well. That's always been ever since I watched the first.
Good choices, all good choices. Yeah.
Ever since I watched the first Iron Man film and watched like Tony Stark like racing around in an i8, R8, I was like, yeah, that's the car for me. So one of those three would be great. But yeah, I am into my cars in terms of like I like driving and I enjoy driving cool cars. But right now, I mean, because I drive a lot, I have to have an economical car. So I currently have an Astra like EcoTech. So I've got a long way to go.
Don't worry, I'm gonna edit that bit out. Don't worry.
My wife is constantly saying, why don't we get a bigger or a nicer car, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, no, darling. I'm the one that has to pay for the petrol, okay? So if I'm going from Birmingham to London twice a week, which is often what I need to do, I'm gonna get something pretty economical. But at some point, give it a couple of years, I'll be racing down that M40 in my i8.
In your i8, nice. No, I like your car choice, and I also like the fact that you mentioned Tony Stark, because I'm a massive Marvel fan. So anything with Iron Man.
You'll be interested in this, right? So my wife promised me that during lockdown 1 that she would watch all of the Marvel films back to back with me, and she didn't do it. Right. So now we're in lockdown 2. I've raised it. I've brought it up.
Promises like that. No, and not keep them.
She keeps changing the subject. Just keeps start. Oh, what do you want for tea, darling? Oh, you sure you don't want to watch Iron Man 1 again?
No, those are promises that you can't make and not keep.
I know. She thinks I've got a head like a sieve, but those kind of things I retain.
Those things.
That's it. That's the important things. That's stayed in there.
It's the husband brain, isn't it? It's that selective.
Yeah.
Some things go in and out.
I won't remember that thing that she said she wanted for Christmas in July. That goes out straight away. But the fact that she said probably after a couple of glasses of wine that she would watch all the Marvel films with me, that's there. That's there forever.
Wine that you poured.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Cool. The next question that I typically ask is to do with music. I would normally ask, what's on your playlist, but with my keen vision, I can see 2 guitars in the back. I can see a bass guitar, and I can see acoustic guitar.
No, they're both just 6-string. Yeah.
I
haven't picked either of them up in about a year. if I'm honest.
Okay, so I won't put you on the spot then. I was going to ask you to play a song, but
oh no, they're probably not even in tune.
Fair enough. All right, back to my original question then. What are you listening to music-wise?
Yeah, do you know what? It's really varied actually. I'm a big rocker. I like my rock music. So like bands like Metallica, I love. I've got a Linkin Park t-shirt on right now. Listening to a lot of Linkin Park at the moment. But I quite like indie. I like people like Frank Turner's one of my favorite artists. He's a bit of a like singer-songwriter, and I belt out a lot of his songs in the car with my awful singing voice. But I also quite like proper old school rap as well. So like Dr. Dre and like Snoop Dogg from back in like the early 2000s. Nice. I like early Eminem stuff, and I really like, one of my favorite albums is Linkin Park and Jay-Z did a collaboration.
I remember that.
And I'm listening to that quite a lot at the moment, actually, strangely enough. That's like playing it in my car. A lot of that sort of stuff goes on my like gym playlist. So it's a lot of like angry rap and angry rock, which I actually think have a lot more in common than people give it like credit for.
Yeah, they do.
I think like hardcore rap and hardcore rock are really similar in terms of their sound and stuff. So
different expressions of similar emotions, maybe.
Exactly. So, and it's why they go, we've had a history of that. I think like Run DMC and Aerosmith did it the first time round, where they merged it together, and there's been a few since then. So that's pretty much my. I was an indie kid when I was younger. I listened. When I was I think my first like proper like album that I bought myself was The Story Morning Glory by Oasis. like 2000 and like, sorry, 1996 or something like that. So yeah, so that's where I was growing up, like all indie music.
Yeah, makes sense. The guitars now.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, listen, this has been a really, really good chat. Thanks for coming on. I've learned so much, and I think people watching back will learn a lot as well. So how can people reach you? You know, if they wanted to get in touch.
Yeah, you need to watch out for that, because once you come into the web, that's it. I'm pretty much everywhere. But yeah, pretty much all social medias. So Instagram, I post daily on there. So at the Sam Norris. I'm also on Twitter at the Sam Norris as well. YouTube, I post twice a week on there. That's Sam Norris, the property investors broker. I didn't realize once I put that in that I couldn't change it for 6 months. So that'll be changed at some point, but it's that for the time being. I'm on Facebook as well, Sam Norris Property. If you search for that, you'll find me on there. And LinkedIn, just Sam Norris. If you search me, then you'll find me there. But all of those that have messenger services, I'm pretty active in terms of responding to direct messages. So if anyone's got any questions that they want to ask, then feel free to jump on and ask on there. Then I pretty much answer questions daily and respond to messages daily on there.
That is great. Awesome. Well, any words that you would give to someone who, you know, in lockdown is trying to either get into business, get into property, any kind of encouragement or nuggets from Sam Norris?
Yeah, don't put it off. Like the amount of times I have people that contact me and they're like, oh, I think it's probably best to wait till next year. There'll always be another excuse. You know, first it was Brexit, now it's coronavirus. There's going to be something else next year. There's going to be a reason not to do it. Find the reason to do it, not to not do it. And that's for me. I found my reason to do it, which was that I didn't have a job. so I had to move forward. But that was the best thing that ever happened. So just get on and do it. You know, actions speak louder than words.
Cool. Well, there you have it. Wise words from the man himself, Sam Norris. Not the one and only, because there is another. We won't tell you his occupation. Scroll back and see if you can remember what that was. But thanks, thanks, Sam. Thanks for coming on. And, you know, all the best in your business and hope you survive lockdown number 2.
I'm sure you will. Cheers, mate.